The speech I'm refuting is, their claim was that social media has a negative effect on students of all ages. That students spend way too much too much time on social media websites, creating problems with their learning abilities, as well as having their ability to socialize. My opponent's secondary claims are that social media negatively affects students in schools, that social medias cause isolation from outside society, and social medias cause immunization. During his first secondary claim, in citing studies done on 1,000 Victorian middle school students, he commits a fallacy of presumption by making sweeping generalizations on these grounds. They assume that the statistics yielded in this research of middle school children is applicable to students of a different age group and educational level. Not only can this point not be applicable to students in other age groups, it also lacks enough data to be applied to larger groups outside of the school district. It is one middle school in the entire country, but with thousands of other middle schools. And it cannot represent all students as a whole. In his secondary claim, he said that it isolates them from outside society, but through personal experience, I've found that social networks are an extension of outside society. People can send invitations and be invited to an event that a friend is having, or people can meet through mutual friends that they do not know each other, or they might not know each other outside of social networks. It allows students to be in constant contact, which allows them to, if they have the opportunity to be able to study together or just do outside activities. So it doesn't really make them loners in that sense. It just makes it so that it's easier for them to talk to other people, and then they're able to do more things. In his third secondary claim, he said that social media is causing immunization. This claim, however, is irrelevant to the major claim, stating that it creates problems with their learning abilities as well as having the ability to socialize. Immunization is not proven as a negative effect in students' academics or social life. He also only explains what happens as an effect of immunization when he compares it to gambling, which doesn't say how this affects the students' academic life. The claim being responded to was that social media has a negative effect on students of all ages. Students can make too much social media websites, creating problems with their learning abilities as well as having the ability to socialize. And the secondary claims I contradicted were that social media's negative affects students in schools. Social media's cause isolation from outside societies, and the social media's causing
All right, the main and secondary issues are labeled adequately. You're reading too much at the very beginning. You're a little bit better as you get through the individual points, but then you return to the same problem towards the end of the presentation. Clear signpost on the first point. Your challenge on the first point is basically that they're overgeneralizing. You need to remind us, in essence, what the evidence that the advocate presented was, and then point out that it is a single middle school. Ultimately, that comes out, but the way you phrase it, you've gone through this whole explanation about it being insufficient and not generalizable before we even remember what the evidence is. So it's a little backwards there. On your counterclaim on the next point, first of all of your information is hypothetical on this. None of it seems to, I don't remember if the advocate presented any evidence on this particular point, but what you've got is a counterclaim that says that it's going to be beneficial in students being able to contact each other and maybe solve problems or get together or arrange those sorts of things, and it's all hypothetical. If you just had some simple illustrations that could contrast that to what the advocate was talking about, I think this argument would be pretty reasonable. But as it is, it's the kind of press that you could have made immediately right after the speech without having had 2 weeks to prepare for it. On the third point, I think you've got a reasonable challenge here in arguing that the advocate failed to provide any information that says internet addiction is problematic, although once again I'm not sure if, what the advocate presented, we heard that speech 2 weeks ago, if there was any evidence presented that suggested that an internet addiction affects people's ability to function on a daily basis or that it neglects something, that would be problematic. The closest that you seem to suggest that they got to this was a comparison to gambling, which I think probably most people would understand it would be problematic, but you're saying that there's not really much documentation on this, so that's a pretty reasonable press here. But again, I think you could point out, for instance, that any counter evidence on this would be easy to come by, that people have become more productive, they learn more efficiently because of access to the media or these kinds of media, that this increased, there are lots of illustrations about how people get updated on their homework assignments, or they get access to research that they wouldn't have otherwise, and it doesn't seem to me like it would be that hard to find some counterclaims here on that particular point. In the summary, you go back to reading, and I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like somebody's parent here. You need to speak up, less mumbling, more projecting. You got to open your mouth and talk to the audience. Your parents ever yell at you guys about doing that, mumbling? Yeah, okay, well, here I am doing the same thing. Less mumbling.